All right, so Civil War is over. We're starting Standard 10 with the Reconstruction. We mentioned the two different sides of Reconstruction. You had the presidential Reconstruction plans with Lincoln's 10% plan, and then when Johnson takes over after Lincoln's assassination, he's heading up the presidential Reconstruction, and then you have Congressional Reconstruction. Congressional Reconstruction was focused more on punishing the South and making sure that the former Confederate states would adhere to the new amendments of the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. We mentioned the 13th with the the abolishing of slavery. And you have, we said no slavery, and then equal citizenship right, and then all men have the right to vote. So we said that you have to have freedom to be a citizen. You have to be a citizen to vote. So you can remember the order. And the Congress kept running into the issue of Johnson having a little bit different view. So we said he was from Tennessee, and so he, had some support for the Confederate side. Despite being on the ballot with Lincoln and being Lincoln's vice president, there were some Southern ties. And so Congress just really got to the point where they were frustrated with him, in some cases just didn't like him, and so they were looking for a way to impeach him. He is impeached, but he's not removed from office by one vote. He hangs in there. And so Congress says, look, this is what we're going to do. We are going to send military into the South. So they divide up into 5 military districts to enforce all of these new rules and laws. You have some pushback, and so you have black codes that are passed in the South that Johnson allows to happen, and these would be some blatant restrictions on the former slaves, now free men and women in the South that are having state laws that are restricting their freedoms. And then you have the Ku Klux Klan, who is trying to stop the 15th Amendment from being a reality and trying to keep now black men have the right to vote. And so it's a either non-free election or a terrorist-driven free election, and that's really not a free election at all. So you have these issues that have to be worked through. And so Congress says the only way to try to provide some of these freedoms and make them reality is to send military presence into the southern states. With that, they also want to include something that Lincoln was pushing for, and that's the Freedmen's Bureau, which was that in between where, okay, you have hundreds of thousands of individuals that are now free, but don't have money, don't have a lot of clothing options, don't have a home, in many cases weren't given the opportunity for education. So the Freedmen's Bureau is that in between. It meets the need to bridge the gap, to provide true freedom. So the Congressional Reconstruction Plan would want to continue that. And all of this comes to a screeching halt with the election of 1876. So you have, like we said, there was not really free elections in some southern states. And so there were some electoral votes that came into question. And all of this works out with Rutherford B. Hayes, who is the Republican candidate, or the Northern candidate would be viewed as some. He becomes president only if, according to the Compromise of 1877, only if the military is removed, and there's some other concessions, making sure there's a cabinet member that has traditional Southern views. So it was Hayes is given his position, the military is removed, and all that progress made during Reconstruction sadly comes to an end.